Not all of our DNA is inherited in the same way, so I thought it might be useful to quickly go through how different parts of our DNA are inherited. So, in terms of inheritance, we can actually section out our DNA into kind of three different types. But first things first, let's start with some DNA basics. Okay, so the vast majority of our DNA is found in a structure in the cell known as the nucleus. And you can actually kind of think of this as being sort of like a beach ball inside the cell. And inside the nucleus is, yup, as you might have guessed, nuclear DNA. And if you were going to look under a microscope and you could zoom in, you'd actually see that it looks like a bunch of sort of stringy things. But if you were able to get in there and do a tidy, you'd see that these stringy things are actually packages known as chromosomes. And we've got 23 pairs of those. So sometimes the way I sort of explain this is actually it's a bit like having 23 bundles of wool that your mum has given you. You know, like the wool that you would use to do knitting? And to make this kind of easy in terms of separating out, let's say all the ones from your mum are one color. So let's say they're, I don't know, yellow, and they're all different sizes. Now, the first bundle is quite a big ball of wool, and it's known as chromosome 1. The second one is a bit smaller than chromosome 1, and it's known as chromosome 2, and so on. And they descend in size all the way down to bundle number 22, which is really quite a small ball of wool. And the last bundle, number 23, is actually around the same size as bundle number 8, and it represents one of our sex chromosomes known as the X chromosome. So the next thing you know, your dad has also given you 23 bundles of wool. And to be able to tell them apart, let's give them a different color. We'll say that they're green, and they're the same sizes as the ones that your mum gave you until you get to the 23rd bundle. And this is where the bundle of wool that your dad gives you has a big effect. If your dad gives you a ball of wool for the 23rd bundle that's the same size as the one that your mom gave you, you're a girl. You've got 2 copies of what's known as the X chromosome. However, if he gives you a really teeny ball of wool, then you are a boy. And that's because even though it's tiny, that little ball of wool represents the Y chromosome, which, putting it really simply, has on it the gene for maleness, which sends the developing fetus down the path to becoming a boy. So chromosome pair number 23 is therefore known as our sex chromosomes, because the combination that you get determines your sex. So now here you are sitting with 23 pairs of bundles of wool. Half of each pair comes from mum, the yellow one, and the other half, the green one, comes from dad. And the pairs number 1 to 22 are the same between men and women, and they're known as our autosomes. So in the egg that your mum had, which gave rise to you, were 22 balls of yellow-colored wool, chromosome pairs 1 to 22, and there was an X chromosome. And in the sperm which fertilized the egg, which went on to become you, were the 22 bundles of green wool, the other half of each pairs of the chromosomes. And then also the bundle of wool that determines whether or not you're a boy or a girl, whether or not the sperm has in it an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. So you can probably already spot something. Only boys have a Y chromosome, and they get it from their father, who got it from their father, and so on back through time. So us gals, we don't have one because it comes down through the male line only. But the important thing to remember with this is that it can then only tell you about just one of your many, many lineages, that one which goes back through the male line. Now then, there is another segment of our DNA known as mitochondrial DNA. It's in the cell, in little structures in the cell known as mitochondria. They're outside the nucleus, but still inside the cell. So they're often described as being like the batteries for the cell because they help create the energy that the cell uses. And inside mitochondria are small circular pieces of DNA known as mitochondrial DNA. And because it's a circular piece of DNA, you can kind of think of it as like a bracelet. Now then, the mitochondria, and therefore the mitochondrial DNA that you get, is actually from your mom. It's in the egg. So a mom, what she does is she passes down her mitochondrial DNA to all of her children, boys and girls. But because boys have got sperm and not eggs, it's only the daughters who can pass it down. As such, looking at your mitochondrial DNA, again, will only tell you about one of your many lineages. It's going to tell you about your maternal line only. So, here you are. You've got 23 pairs of bundles of wool, each pair made up of a yellow bundle from your mom and a green bundle from your dad, and you've got a bracelet. So chromosome pairs number 1 to 22 are the same between men and women, and chromosome pair number 23 will either be 2 big bundles if you're a girl, and a big bundle and a little bundle if you're a boy. The Y chromosome can only travel down the male line. The bracelet of mitochondrial DNA that's given to you from your mom can only come down through the female line, and the rest of your DNA is a mixture of that comes from both parents.